No. Oh, honestly, I'll be absolutely fine. I've just popped out to get a pot noodle and a pizza, and I'll be back as soon as you know it. Yeah, no, it's not even that dangerous out here anymore. It's really chilled out recently. All right, cool. All right, I'll see you soon. I'll be really quick, okay? Cool, love you too. Okay, goodbye, bye. Oh, greetings everyone. It is I, Ian Higton, coming to you not live from the future of post-Brexit Britain. And as you can see, everything turned out absolutely fine. So it turns out Brexit was nothing to worry about after all, which is nice. Oh my God, I think an ambulance just exploded. Now, recently I spent a good 3 hours or so playing Watch Dogs Legion, a game which is also set in a fictionalised representation of post-Brexit London. And while you might spot a few differences in this gameplay footage, what with there being futuristic technology and all, the general recreation of the location is pretty spot on. So spot on, in fact, that I stumbled across a multitude of experiences that could only take place on these fair isles. So, before you get bored and call yourselves a cab, here are 9 incredibly British things that you can do in Watch Dogs Legion. Number 1, pretend to be James Bond.
Their profiles are heavily encrypted. No identifying information.
Ghosts in the system. That hurt you more than it hurt me.
If there's one famous fictional figure that's quintessentially British, it has to be James Bond. So of course, a game set in the same city where MI6 resides has to let you roleplay as the UK's most super of super spies. In fact, Watch Dogs Legion wastes no time at all in letting you live out your Secret Service fantasies, because the game's prologue puts you in the highly polished shoes of Dalton, a Kingsman cosplaying ex-MI5 agent who is now working exclusively for DedSec. Dalton has been called in by his DedSec handlers to investigate a threat to Parliament, which, after a little bit of investigating, turns out to be the explodey kind of threat that threatens to explode sometime in the very near future.
RDX nitrogen, enough to level Parliament.
Can you locate a detonator, Bagley?
So, acting like some kind of reverse Guy Fawkes, it's up to you to stop these masked militants from blowing the Palace of Westminster sky high. This section is where you'll first get to grips with the gameplay of Watch Dogs Legion, and it'll teach you the basics of stealth combat, cover-based gunfights, and, most James Bondy of all, using gadgets to navigate your environment and incapacitate your enemies. Just like previous games in the Watch Dogs series, you can use your mobile phone to hijack security cameras and then bounce between them to survey your immediate area, pinpoint and tag any potential threats, and lay traps to incapacitate any enemies who may be blocking your route to victory. Shocking. There's absolutely nothing new here to surprise fans of the series, and anyone who has played Watch Dogs 2 should be able to do this section with their eyes closed. But by combining a James Bond-style protagonist with an iconic British landmark and a nod to the most famous gunpowder-based plot ever, the introduction to Watch Dogs Legion is the most British opening to a video game since 1986's EastEnders the arcade game for the ZX Spectrum. Number 2, be a Nosy Parker. Ooh, what are they doing?
All right, mate. What are you doing here?
I ain't seen nothing, Gov.
What do you mean?
Wait, you don't look... Oh, bollocks. You're undercover, aren't you? Trying to see if I'll talk, eh? Ain't gonna happen.
All right, take it easy.
I ain't seen nothing.
Look, I'm not saying that all British people are inherently nosy. I mean, sure, everyone loves a good gossip and all that, but as far as I know, no other country in the world has a population that loves prying on other people as much as we do. I mean, come on, we've even invented slang words for it. Take curtain twitchers, for instance. These drama lovers are people in the UK who typically watch what their neighbours are doing through little gaps in their curtained windows. And while there are no actual curtains to peep through in Legion, you can get that same busybody buzz by using your mobile phone to access the personal details of every single inhabitant of virtual London. There is a point to this that goes way beyond finding out about someone's dirty laundry though, because in Watch Dogs Legion you're able to use this talent to search out and then recruit new members to DedSec. As you can see here, every NPC in the game can be scanned, and each one has a set of specialist skills, like George Outerbridge here, who does extra melee damage when drunk, standard. Or, even better, Hannah Patil, who is a professional hitman with an arsenal of weaponry and a unique lethal takedown move. Not all pedestrians will be worth pestering, but if you spot any with potential skills that you wish to utilise, you can mark them for possible recruitment at a later date. Now, when I first heard about Watch Dogs Legion and this recruitment feature, I presumed that you could simply jump from pedestrian to pedestrian, possessing them at will like some kind of fickle ghost. But in actual fact, it takes quite a lot of work to convince the members of the public to join your crew. Let's take the anarchist Michael King, for instance. He's got a set of specialist skills that could be really useful for a future mission that requires a bit of stealth, but he's not about to jump into bed with DedSec at a moment's notice. First, you'll need to do something for him, which in this case revolves around rescuing his mate from the clutches of Albion, Legion's main enemy faction. To do this, I had to first sneak through a drug manufacturer's lair in order to download CCTV footage from a CTOS server, and no, I've got no idea why that would be located in a drugs lab either, and then drive across London to another location where said mate was being held captive by Albion. Then all I had to do was sneak into this highly guarded location, rescue the abducted anarchist and escort him to safety. Only after doing all of that could I then assume control of Michael and use him whenever I wanted.
I'm ready for action.
Excellent.
I can't say whether or not every recruitment mission will be as intense and long-winded as this one, but it did involve an incredibly large amount of snooping, so that's another cross on the bingo board of Britishness.
DedSec's got their tools down, Pat.
Number 3, do kick-ups in the park. Ah, football. The beautiful game is as British as being sick on the pavement, and there's nothing more Sunday afternoon in England than a spot of footy in the local park. Now, granted, this grass patch in the centre of Westminster is more of a verge than a village green, but still I was able to spend a couple of minutes here indulging in one of Legion's many mini-games, which in this case was a spot of keepy-uppies. Now, I found these kick-ups pretty tricky anyway, as you have to match button inputs rhythm action style in order to keep the ball in the air. But things start getting really complicated for the brain when it asks you to swap from feet to knees and back again. You're going to need to be pretty on the ball when it comes to your reflexes if you want to score big on this one, but if you already fancy your footwork, you can earn some extra points for yourself by attempting to do this while drunk. And really, there's nothing more British than booze and ball games, is there?
Look at me go.
Number 4, go sightseeing. While sightseeing isn't a uniquely British thing to do, in Watch Dogs Legion you can recreate a traditional British sightseeing experience incredibly well. I was genuinely surprised as to how accurately Legion's London has been recreated, and I recognised so many places that I was familiar with from the real world that it almost felt like I'd played the game before. Legion's map is made up of 8 districts, each with their own unique landmarks, like the Shard in Southwark or Westminster Bridge in Westminster. But the landmark I spent the most of my time with in this demo was the Tower of London, a place that I've actually visited in real life for an Assassin's Creed press event. And let me tell you right now, it was so detailed and accurate that I even managed to enter the room that I did the AC demo in all those years ago. I'm sure that there are a huge amount of familiar locations in the game that Londoners will recognise, but as I had to stick to a certain set of missions, I didn't get time to explore too much. What I did do though was try to find the site of Eurogamer's EGX Resd event, which is held in the Tobacco Dock in Wapping. Unfortunately, Legion's map seems to end just before I reached that location, but anyone who knows the area will definitely recognise this as the St Catherine Docks Marina, which is just a short distance away. Number 5, play some classic pub games. When people go out drinking in other countries, they tend to go to bars and clubs, and while we have those things here in the UK, our favourite place to sink a few pints has to be the good old-fashioned pub. Thankfully, you won't have to wait too long to find a pub in Legion, as one of your first missions will be to visit the Earl's Fortune, a boozer local to Westminster that, like Watch Dogs 2's board game store Gary's Games and Glory, acts as a front to one of DedSec's main underground bases. In this base, you'll be able to meet other members of DedSec, get briefings for the main story missions, and even, for some unknown reason, have your photo taken in some kind of virtual photo booth that's been built inside of an old police phone box. But anyway, when all that hacktivism gets a bit too much for you, you can always head on upstairs to the boozer to try out a couple of classic British pub activities, namely chucking a few quid in the fruity or playing a game of darts. I actually found the aiming in this darts minigame really tricky, so I'm wondering if, like in real life, I should have just downed a couple of pints first, in order to steady my aim.
Ah, just like riding a bicycle. Try and top that, go on, I dare you.
Number 6, go garden hopping.
Control, put out an APW. Target is gone.
If you never grew up in Britain, or more specifically an urban area of Britain, you might never have heard of the majestic sport known as garden hopping before. Garden hopping is a legendary, mainly nocturnal activity that many British youths indulge in during their boisterous teenage years, and I'm very pleased to let you know that it is entirely possible to recreate this glorious game in Watch Dogs Legion. All you need to do to play garden hopping is to find a nice long row of terraced houses like this one here, jump over a wall into the first garden, and then simply try to get across as many adjacent gardens as possible via any means necessary before one of the house owners comes outside and gives you a rather stern telling off. Stupid? Yes. Fun? Oh yes. British? Absolutely.
We would have some mad plan to fix all these problems. With robot police or automated crop fertilizing or some shit.
Number 7, drive on the right side of the road! After years upon years of being fed a diet of video games that are set in America, it is ultra refreshing to play a game where you drive on the right side of the road for once. And by right side, I mean the left side, because that's the way we do it over here. You can steal any car or bike you see in the game, from futuristic Johnny Cab-style automated taxis through to your classic red double-decker, and if you stick to the speed limit, driving on the left-hand side of the road should stop you from crashing headfirst into oncoming traffic, like you would do in, say, Watch Dogs 2, for instance.
Not swapping insurance.
Driving in Watch Dogs Legion felt no different to driving in Watch Dogs 2 to me, aside from which way the traffic was flowing, of course, and once again you're able to troll your fellow commuters with your phone by hacking their cars and causing them to swerve off the road. Okay, so attempted manslaughter isn't an incredibly British thing to do, I hope, but driving on the left is so British, we've been doing it since 1835. Number 8, ride on the London Tube.
Approach the Tower of London when you're ready.
Look, I know big cities in other countries have underground train systems too, but only Britain has the famous London Tube, and so of course you can ride it in Legion. Sort of. You see, the tube in Legion acts as the game's fast travel system, and as long as you've uncovered that area of the map already, you can fast travel to any tube station you want. Triggering a fast travel sequence doesn't actually result in anything more exciting than a loading screen, and technically you don't even get to see inside a tube train when you do choose to fast travel, but you still get the speed and convenience of the underground without all of the negatives like the smelly armpit guy who stands way too close to you, or the confused tourist who stands on the left-hand side of the escalator and then blocks it all with their luggage. Those are some of the most frustrating things about travelling around London, to be fair, so I actually don't mind that Legion just completely glosses over this part and just lets us get on with our missions. Number 9, get pissed up and embarrass yourself.
And in the wake of escalating violence in London, the SIRS is extending the right to use lethal force, to law enforcement and Albion Securities.
And the very final, incredibly British thing to do on this list is, of course, what we as a nation are most famous for, and that is our ability to get extremely pissed up and embarrass ourselves. In Watch Dogs Legion, you can help yourself to a lovely, refreshing booze whenever you're near a bar, and necking a lovely bevy will get you royally wasted in no time. Once you're out on the lash, the game will simulate your drunkenness by having the screen go all wobbly and by making your controls go a little bit wonky. You know, just like how being drunk in real life works. Then, after you've sunk a couple of cold ones, all you need to do is head out onto the streets and embrace your inner football hooligan by starting a fistfight with some coppers in someone's driveway before running off to, presumably, be sick into a biffa bin. Classic Britain. And there we go, those were 9 incredibly British things to do in Watch Dogs Legion. From the 3 hours I played, I've got to say, aside from the change in location and the recruitment system, it doesn't actually feel any different from Watch Dogs 2 at all. Now, this could be good or bad depending on your love of the previous game. If you enjoyed Marcus Holloway's adventures in San Francisco, you should like this one well enough because it's basically a copy and paste job with a few bits changed. But if you were hoping for some radical changes to the gameplay, I feel like you'll be rather disappointed, as when it comes down to the core experience, it's almost identical. That's not to say it's not fun though, it just feels a bit like something that could have been an admittedly huge piece of DLC.
Yeah, I got it.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please do give it a like, think about subscribing to Eurogamer for daily videos about video games, and if you're in the mood for another preview, why not check out Zoe's first impressions of her hands-on time with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which should be on screen for you to click on right now. Alrighty, goodbye. I'm off to get myself another pizza. Hello? Is that Domino's? Hey, do you still do those pizzas with the burgers for the crowd? Wait, what do you mean that's Pizza Hut? Alright, there's no need to shout. Jesus. So you can't do them at all? What, not even for me?